Hi, thanks for coming, everybody. So, I was privileged enough to be asked by our principal to share some of the exciting, fun things that we've learned about in our master's program. And our master's program it focuses on social emotional learning, or as we like to call it, SEL. So, what is social emotional learning? Well, the Handbook of Social Emotional Learning defines SEL as a process for helping children and even adults develop the fundamental skills for life effectiveness, recognizing and managing emotions, developing caring and concerns for others, establishing positive relationships, making responsible decisions, and handling challenging situations both constructively and ethically. So, just to elaborate on what social emotional learning is and who helped develop it, the collaboration of academic social and emotional learning, CASEL, is an organization with a mission to help establish evidence based SEL as an essential part of preschool through high school education. And what CASEL has done is they've broken SEL down into 5 competence domains. And these domains include self awareness, self management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to go a little further and break each one of these domains down. So, the competence domain self awareness. This is when a student is able to identify emotions. They have a self perception of who they are as an individual. They're able to then recognize their own strengths and, of course, their weaknesses. And they have a sense of confidence and self efficacy. And I feel that this is important for children, especially today with the amount of assessments that we give them. The ability to take those assessments and then recognize whether or not they're strong in certain content areas or weak in certain content areas will then lend itself into them coming to you or having the confidence to come to you and ask questions so that they can get better at those particular content areas. Another domain that I'd like to talk about is self management. This includes impulse control, stress management, self discipline, self motivation, perseverance, goal setting, and organizational skills. Again, we're seeing with today's trying times a lot of stress, and our students are having difficulty managing that stress. So, with SEL, we can teach them how to not only recognize their own emotions, but then how to manage them. Competence domain responsibility decision making. All right, so responsible decision making. This is when a student can identify problems, analyze situations, solve these problems, evaluate, reflect, and then have an ethical responsibility. Okay, so I see this a lot in school, and our schools tried to tackle this in the past by doing things like circles, right? And social justice or social reflecting. And what we do in these situations is we typically try to have students come together and discuss why they're having particular problems, right? And they try to analyze the situation. If they're having conflict with a student or a teacher, we bring them together and we have them evaluate why they're having these problems and then reflect on it and then make decisions based off of those reflections. Well, maybe I could have done this differently or I could have done that differently. So, this is where this competency domain comes in. Competence domain relationship skills. And this is one that I like to focus on. Communication, social engaging, building relationships, working cooperatively, resolving conflicts, and helping and seeking out help. So, like any relationship, professional or friendly, communication is key. And with students, we try to teach them it's important for them to communicate to us. And of course, in order for them to feel comfortable communicating with us, teachers, we need to build relationships with them. And that's something that we need to do continuously. It's not something that we can, at the first day of school, do a simple thing to get to know one another. We have to constantly throughout the year be working on building our relationships. And working cooperatively is when we get our students to actually work cooperatively together. And this we'll talk about a little bit later where I suggest doing cooperative learning. And what cooperative learning does is it opens students up. It gives them an opportunity to meet other peers in their class that they might normally not meet outside of the classroom. And it builds community and it builds trust. And then finally, social awareness. Perspective taking, having empathy, appreciating diversity, and respect for others. So again, this can be achieved through cooperative learning, right? So getting students to pair up with students that they normally wouldn't have an opportunity to talk with, and appreciating their diversity, right? So this might also come as maybe cultural training, or like at our school, we actually have a multicultural day where we appreciate others' cultures and we learn about them. So there's already processes that are in place at our school for developing this, but it's something that we like to focus on in SEL as well. So is SEL effective? Well, in 2011, meta-analysis of 213 studies involving school-based universal SEL programs, including over 270,000 students in K-12, revealed these quite staggering results. So what we saw science link SEL to student gains. So these gains would include social emotional skills, improved attitudes about self, others, and school, positive classroom behavior, and there was an 11 percentile point gain on standardized achievement tests. And at the same time, we saw a reduction or reduced risks for failure in conduct problems and emotional distress. Those are all winning numbers. So why do I think SEL is so important? Well, I think it helps teachers get to know students on a personal level, which I mentioned earlier is incredibly important. I have personally seen the difference in a student's education when he or she understands their emotions and feels comfortable sharing how they feel. And I've seen this through things as restorative practices that I mentioned earlier, where students get together, they form a circle, and they share their emotions with one another. I'm also lucky to be one of the trusted adults on our campus. And by that, I mean that students have, over the years, voted for who they feel comfortable coming to with their problems. And so I've been voted one of those trusted adults. And nearly on a daily basis, I have students come to me and confide in me and things that are going on in their personal lives, and ask for ways that are advice that I can do to help them. And these students that have developed this trust with me, I see that they work harder in my class, and they're more willing to put effort in, knowing that I care about them. So it's incredibly important to make these connections. And finally, students just in general feel more connected to the campus. So 3 tips for implementing SEL in your classroom today, things that you can do to get started. So right away, take time to personally get to know each and every one of your students. And this can start from day one. I like to do a lot of fun activities, and some of the activities I do that I'm sure you might have heard about in the past is 2 truths and a lie, right? Where students, they come up with 2 truths about themselves and 1 lie, and they share it with the class, and the class has to try to figure out which of the 3 is a lie, right? And at the same time, they're sharing 2 truths that are typically pretty exciting about their lives. I also do a thing called a name mnemonic, where I make them use their name, the letters of their name, to create something, tell us something about themselves. So an example would be a student of mine named Joy. J would be for joyful, O would be for outgoing, and Y would be for youthful. I also like to do something called life story in 6 words or less, where I have a student tell me their life story, right? And the example that I give them for myself is try everything first, ask questions later. That's typically how I've been my entire life, where I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I'm game for it. And then I'm like, wait, what am I signing up here for? Right. So that's one of the ways that some fun games like that teachers and even the students can get to know about their peers. And then have students take a survey, right? So I'll do this typically at the beginning of the year, where I have students take a survey and they tell me about their likes, their dislikes, their weaknesses, their strengths, their hobbies, things like that. And I hold on to that survey so I can make reference to it later in life, later in the class. And then also I like to every test, I like to ask kind of a funny, goofy question in my tests and my quizzes that aren't really worth points, but it might be something like, what is your favorite movie, or what is your favorite TV show that you're watching currently, right? So I'm always constantly trying to get to know my students. Number two, bring parents into the mix. Ask parents to write you a small letter about their son or daughter. Have them talk about their strengths and their weaknesses, what they might need to succeed in your class. Because after all, no one knows your student better than your parents, and they're the key source. I mean, if you really want to get to know what works for your students, talk to the parents. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, cooperative learning is huge. So in cooperative learning, I like to assign as many cooperative projects as possible. This gives students an opportunity to learn about one another, and it also builds a community of trust where students will then feel comfortable expressing their emotions and learn to recognize other emotions in the process. So cooperative learning is incredibly important, I think, to social emotional learning. So in conclusion, social emotional skills are incredibly essential to school, work, and life itself. When students can understand their own emotions, they are more equipped to handle stressful situations, empathize with others' emotions, and better control impulsive behavior, solve problems in peaceful ways, and effectively communicate their needs and wants. Studies have shown that students who participate in social emotional learning have improved grades and behavior. So they're twice as likely to earn a college degree and 50% higher rate of high school graduation. In the video Social Emotional Learning, What is SEL and Why It Matters? The professor was quoted as saying, simply put, by participating in social emotional learning, students learn the skills to succeed in every facet of school and the rest of their lives. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and you seriously consider taking SEL into your classroom. Thank you.